residual. It's just as, now we think it's allergies. Wasn't enough. There's something else. Yeah, but now it's allergies. Take meds. Oh,
Here, you want to move over a
you
little
want
bit?
to trade sides?
No, because I want to be able to see.
Because we're going to sit on that side with the control facing that way, but I don't have any impact. Which direction? Oh, it's starting to rain. The windows are scratches on it. Good. One less time.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Begin with a little bit of music. We're on page number 10. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. It's funny, by the way, how different religions mark time. If you think about what Christians do to mark time, they have bells, right? When you hear the church bell ringing. For Jews, they have sirens. If you've ever been in Jerusalem, you know that 18 minutes before Shabbat, all the sirens, by the way, the same system that's used for warning for missile attacks, goes off right then and there. And people who are on the street are scrambling to get to synagogue and Shabbat dinner to make sure that they're in time. And there's something, by the way, about tonight that feels a little more siren than bell. The idea that everyone hopefully is trying to get here before the skies just open up. And then hopefully this room can feel like what it's supposed to be, a shelter from life's storm, right? For 6 days, we've had the storm around us. We've been working, we've been running around, we've been worried about the things of the world. Shabbat is supposed to be that respite. You're supposed to rush into Shabbat and then relax the moment that you get there. And as we watch as the windows get a little more wet and the storm goes, I want us to feel what it is to create that shelter in this room right now. A shelter of love and a shelter of peace. We're on page 10 in the middle, Yedi Nefesh. Yedi Nefesh Avarakaman. Yedi Nefesh Avarakaman. Mishokatecha El Ritzonecha. Mishokatecha Yananai El Ritzonecha Yaru Tomorrow morning, we're going to invite Zena up as she becomes bat mitzvah and reads from the Torah publicly for the very first time. And so in honor of that, I want to invite her with her immediate family to please come up to the bima to prepare to light our candles and lead us in Kiddush. We're on page 2 and 3.
Sure. Okay. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pori hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lemikrayei kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim ki banu v'harta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
Yashikoah.
We're going to move forward in our prayer books now. We're on page 20 as we join together in the singing of Lachadoti. turning to the Ark, page 28. Seated together. We move forward now in our prayer books. We're on page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv, Aravim. Page 32. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Chavta, Torah u'mitzvot, u'kiyu mishpatim, otanu lemadeta. Amen Adonai Eloheinu, Shomeinu v'kumeinu, Nasiach bechukecha, v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Hem chayenu, v'orach yameinu, v'orach yameinu, u'bahem negeh, yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla.
Yavatecha al tasir mimenu leolamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, bishivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha vaderech, uvshokbecha uvekumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot beinenecha, Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti atchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet.
We're on page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. A song of a world redeemed, a song of peace. Page 40.
Chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
We're on page 42. Adonai In a moment, we're going to rise together and pray our Amidah, which you can find on page 46. And after this opening meditation, we'll move through page 62 in silence. You can pray either the traditional words on the page or whatever words are in your heart, and you can be seated when you're finished. We rise together. Oh, say shalom bimrama. Oh, say shalom aleinu. Kol Israel. Me'iru, diru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu, le'alko Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu, le'alko Yisrael. Yoseh shalom b'morah. Yaseh shalom Amen. shalom bichroma. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleichem. Can't hear you. So as we do each week, we add a special prayer for Israel to the mix. This prayer speaks to all the complexities of what many of us may be feeling, the many spokes to this conflict. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, we ask that you bless the state of Israel and all of Israel's inhabitants. Makor Chaim, source of life, bless and strengthen those who defend the land and ensure their safe and speedy return. Protect them and guide them. Kadosh Baruch Hu, holy and blessed one, show Israel's leaders your paths so they may act with wisdom, courage, and dedication, and that they may be unwavering in their pursuit of peace. Strengthen their hearts, but keep their hearts from hardening. Adonai Poked, God who remembers. There are more than 100 people currently being held in Gaza who are thought to be alive, including Oded Lipschutz, 83, Guy Gabo Dalal, 22, Eviatar David, 23, Nama Levi, 19, Bipin Joshi, 23, Eden Alexander, 19, Nathan Pong Pintha, 35, Shiri Bibas, 32, Yarden Bibas, 34, and their sons Ariel, 4, and Kafir, 1. Matira Surim, freer of captives, return all those who are kidnapped safe and sound to their homes, without the spilling of more innocent blood, without any more souls being tarnished by horrific acts. Baal HaRachamim, master of compassion, help us to hold the humanity and the heartache of the Jewish people, of all the residents of the state of Israel, while also holding the humanity and dignity of the Palestinian people. As we are made in your image, remind us of your ways. Spread over us a shelter of peace and fulfill the vision of your prophets. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not take up sword against nation. They shall never again know war.
I love that we started the Amidah together, and then we got really silent, and that was kind of our time, for our personal time. And then as Rabbi started the prayer for Israel, he talked about opening our hearts. And so our hearts were already cracked open with the prayers that we had for ourselves, yet we added a prayer for Israel as well. And not just for Israel, but all the Palestinians as well. And now we keep our hearts open and turn to page 253 and have this opportunity to add a Mishaberach, a prayer for healing for those that need that as well. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et hakolim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. And now's your opportunity, if you'd like to say those names out loud. And we'll be able to look on the screen for additional names as well. But I'd love you to join me in this center in a second. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion has a few interesting sections in it that people have wrestled with throughout time. Probably the most challenging, which I'm not really going to delve into because Zena's going to do such a good job tomorrow, is the section when a husband suspects his wife of adultery and she's made in the town square to drink a certain concoction with God's name dissolved in it to prove whether or not she did or she did not commit that adultery. But instead, I want to talk about another strange section, which is called the Nazirite section, which is in this week's Torah portion. There were a group of people who could opt to take on more than the 613 commandments that God had given in the Torah. Now, it's not easy to be a Jew, and it's not easy to do all that is in the Torah, not only for the ethical stuff, but for the ritual things as well, for keeping kosher, for keeping Shabbat, for not mixing wool and linen in the same garment. And so, why would it be then that somebody would take on this extra element? Are they so drunk with love for God that they would decide to actually add extra strictures to their life? But yet they do. And this Nazirite has a series of things that he or she can opt not to do. Now, they take this vow for a certain period of time, and eventually there's a ritual to get out of it. And once they take the vow, they can't drink wine, they cannot cut their hair, they can't eat meat, and they can't go near a dead body, which means that if they lose a loved one, someone else has to bury that loved one, not them. And they can opt for this as a way, as a sign to show God this religious connection that other people may not have the stomach for. It's not easy to do all of that. But the question that I want to ask tonight is whether or not that's actually a good thing. And there is a nod to the fact that even our tradition understands that it's not. That sometimes people can go too far with their religiosity. Sometimes people can delve into fundamentalism, and it can be a scary thing. And the reason that we know that our tradition actually frowns upon people who choose to make this Nazirite vow is that when the Nazirite decides that it's time to end the vow, what does he or she have to do? They have to make a sin offering to God. Now, there's lots of different offerings that existed in the ancient world, and offerings were actually much simpler messages than a lot of the different messages that we have today. Instead of having, for example, prayer, which is complex and artistic and has metaphors in it and is lengthy, instead, if you picked the right animal, sacrificed it at the right time in the right way, the messages were simple. Some were for holidays, some were to say thank you for God, some were simply to acknowledge your well-being, and some were to say you were sorry. And that sin offering, the offering in which one uses to say they are sorry, becomes part and parcel of the way that the person who took that Nazirite vow needs to come back into the community. Which means that there's something buried in our tradition that shakes its head at people who don't cut their hair, drink wine, eat meat, and touch dead bodies for God. Now, I think that's an important thing to say, because ultimately, we've watched in the 20th century as all traditions, but Judaism as well, have had sex turn toward fundamentalism. People who have, quote, tried to outdo one another in religiosity, only to give up more and more and more. And for centuries, for millennia, Jews have actually fought against a kind of fundamentalism. The Nazirite doesn't stand for the end goal. The Nazirite stands for rather a concession that Judaism has made for those few people who just can't go without going beyond the law, that extra mile. But in fact, people have tried to give up wine and give up meat as a sign of their own religiosity, only to be rebuked by the rabbis who didn't take the Nazirite vow, and to say, "Ein simcha ela basar v'yayin." There's no joy except through those things. And we're taught that when God asks a series of questions when we die, one of them will be, what were the enjoyments of life that you could have enjoyed but that you passed up? And we're not always great at taking advantage of those things, but there are people who really deny themselves it, who say to themselves, we have to outdo the other in our sense of religiosity. We have to be pure, we have to be perfect. There's always more to do. And it's dangerous and it's scary. 2,000 years ago, there were groups of people called the Zealots who were religious fundamentalists, and groups of people called the Essenes who were as well. Both groups perished at the hands of the Romans. The Essenes, who may or may not have written the Dead Sea Scrolls, went into the desert and practiced a lifestyle that was completely ascetic. They removed everything from themselves because they didn't want to be involved in society at all. And then there were the Zealots, who were so committed to their sense of Jewishness that when the Romans were surrounding Jerusalem, ready to sack the city, they burned the stores of food. You may or may not know this, but in 70 CE, when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, the Jews had the ability to wait them out. The only reason they had to throw open the gates is because they were all starving, because the Zealots put the fire to their rations so that the Jews had nothing left but to fight. That sense of religious fundamentalism is a scary thing. And I can't speak to why it is that there's so much fundamentalism in every other religion as well. But I have a few thoughts about why it is that there is still that in Judaism today. And I want to give 3 different answers. The first is that tragedy promotes an insularity, and insularity promotes fundamentalism. Living in the shadow of the Holocaust as we do, there was a turning inward of the Jewish people. Now, some saw the Holocaust, as I imagine many of you did, as a cry toward universalism. The idea is if that horrible things could happen to us, then we need to make sure that they don't happen to other people. But that's not necessarily the only way to see the Holocaust. And it's as authentic to read it with a universalist lens as it is to read it with a particularist lens. No one came to our aid. So we need to circle the wagon. We need to shut out the outside world. We need to only care about ourselves. And when you're having a conversation that's internal, that's not focused on the outside world, you only get more and more strict. The second reason is because there is a little bit of a rat race going on in the religious world right now about whose religion can be firmer. I've seen this, by the way, in Israel itself, as the ultra-Orthodox move more and more toward taking women and putting them on the sideline. The reason they do that is because there's a kind of purity test that they feel up against the Muslim tradition, which is also there. And who is and who can be more strict. And in a way, there's a religious element to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict right now. Not just who owns the land, not just who shoots the missiles, not just who fires the gun, but whose women can dress a little bit more modest, whose men can be promoted just a little bit higher than the other. And that then trickles down into other parts of the Jewish world, even in America and some parts of ultra-Orthodoxy, as mores and culture changes. And then there's the question of the way technology has come to play. We live in a world of standardization. We had this amazing talk on Tuesday night at Shavuot, where Rabbi Joe Sklut talked about the fact that one of the elements of print is that ultimately things get standardized on a page. If you're stamping the same page over and over, then suddenly things look a certain way, and things that used to have variation no longer do. That, by the way, has become the standard for trope. The kind of melodies that we use when we chant Torah, those melodies used to be dependent on the specific shtetl you were from. Scholars could close their eyes and listen to somebody chant Torah, chant prayers, and they could say, you are from this part of Hungary, or you are from this part of Poland. But with people learning more and more on the internet, people learning more and more from recordings, people learning more and more from teachers who went to a standard school like Hebrew Union College, where I went, that taught us how trope works, there's no longer that kind of regional variation anymore. There's a standardization. And there's a standardization also of law. Once upon a time, you used to be able to go to your rabbi and you used to be able to say to your rabbi, Rabbi, I have this question, and the rabbi would look at the whole you to answer that question. There's an adage of a woman who would bring a chicken that she just shechted, that she just killed, to the rabbi and say to the rabbi, Rabbi, is this kosher? And when he would look at the chicken, he'd also look at her and find out, are you wearing rags? Is this going to be your only meal? And he would be lenient with the way that chicken was, in part because he saw the person standing before them. In a place where you just post online about it and no one stands before you. In a place where books become the standard, not community anymore. In a globalized world where there's only one or two authorities that really matter sometimes in certain spheres, what happens is the panoply of answers shrink in the same way that the melodies of the Torah do. And we're only left with the most extreme answer, not the one that makes sense for the community or the person. Now, I gave 3 reasons, but there are more, I'm sure. And the truth is, it's hard to fight against that grain. And every single one of you are here as Reform Jews. Whether you consider yourself that or not, you are in a Reform synagogue. In part because you yourself don't abide by that form of religious fundamentalism. You don't feel like the more machmir, the more strict you are, the more extreme you are, that's necessarily right. But I fear that we're getting to a point where orthodoxy, not in the religious sense, but in the ideological sense, is something that we have to worry about. Now, I'm not talking, by the way, about modern orthodoxy. I'm talking about a hardening of ideas and beliefs. The fact, by the way, that the Supreme Court, in their orthodoxy, just took away any kind of gun control that had been passed over the past few years because they had that kind of fundamentalist belief in the Second Amendment, is something that we have to be scared of, something we have to fight against, something perhaps that we as a nation have to make that sin offering for. We have to stay flexible. We have to stay open. We have to allow ourselves to do something for ourselves and not be so wedded to getting things right, to being perfect, to being better than others, to outdoing each other in religiosity, that we end up losing our way. It's great that some people are Nazarites, but we can't all be. And this world is better for the fact that many of us reject that way of thinking. Shabbat Shalom. We're on page 282 as we move toward the conclusion of our service. Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו Ushemo, Ushemo, Echad.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who we've loved and who we've lost, as together we turn to page 294. And as I call your loved one's name, I'll invite you to rise, honoring their memory and remaining standing. We recall the memory of Sidney Vincent Arbor IV, Robert Arnstein, Gussie Baker, Jeanette Balin, Minnie Berman, Leopold Berger, Saul Chafkin, Beatrice Chipkin, Marcia Ursam, Leotine Epstein, Jack Epstein, Edward Finkelstein, Clara Gaffin, Ronald Galen, Sidney Goldstein, Alfred Green, Philip Grunfest, Myrna Gurwitz, Roberta Handler, Joseph Hertzberg, Karina Rose Hill, Harry Jacobs, Robert Coulter, Diana Kirschenbaum, Sharon Kraus, Zoe Levinson, Fanny Linkoff, Paul Meyerowitz, Esther Moses, Arthur Natter, Josephine Phillips, Seal Rabinowitz, Rebecca Ash Slifkin, George Solomon, Frederick Sorkin, Elaine Stein, Celia Tambor, Marion Earl Troy, Samuel Walkstein, Howard Weinberg, Seal Wine, and Harry Wine. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning: Paula Goldstein, mother of Cora Vest; Bernard David Shepin, father of Eldad Shepin; Lucy Morgan; Leslie Kaplan, father of Douglas Kaplan; Jerome Bengis, stepfather of Deborah Feinberg. I announced two names, Paula Goldstein and Bernard David Shepin, both of whom were laid to rest today. The Vest family will be sitting Shiva on Saturday night and Sunday night, each with a minyan at 7 p.m. The Shepins will be sitting Saturday, Sunday, and Monday nights, also during the day as well. The Vest family will also be sitting on Sunday day as well. But the Shepins will have a minyan on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night at 7 p.m. as well. If you can help to make a minyan for any of those, we would appreciate it. In addition, I'll invite anyone who is in their one-year period of mourning or who is observing a yard site that might not have been on this list to please rise and share the name of the person you're thinking. Page 294. Gadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei ducho beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam omei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'rechu. Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiram b'yama v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, huyaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Please be seated. So a few announcements. There are two interesting talks coming up that I want to plug. One is Tuesday night. Steve Fulop, who is the mayor of Jersey City, is going to be coming to Temple Ner Tamid. He is the fourth elected official who is going to be coming this season, who is running for governor. We're trying to get as many of our gubernatorial candidates to come through so we get a chance to hear from them. We ask them very hard-hitting questions about anti-Semitism, about Israel, and just about their agenda for New Jersey. And so hopefully you can come and learn a little bit about that niche. They don't often talk about it, but they talk about it here. Then on the 9th of July, Daniel Silva is coming to the congregation. He is an Israeli. Very excited. He is my favorite author. He is also an Israeli spy novelist, and he's written 23 books. This is his 24th one. I probably read 12 of them. I haven't read all of them, but he's really fun, really amazing, and it's a pretty big coup that we're having him. So it's actually not our event; it's the Watch on Booksellers event. We're just happy to be hosting it, and it comes with a book bundle. So basically, the cost of the ticket is basically the cost of a hardcover book, and so you can register through them, and then come on the 9th of July.
And tomorrow morning at 8:30, there's Torah study online. And then at 10 o'clock, someone we know and love will become bat mitzvah.
Yes,
And there will be an alternative service in the chapel because there's casual minyan.
exactly. Speaking of minyanim hosted and held by congregants. So the culture at our congregation is for our summer services to be lay-led. We have all our Friday night speakers set, but we need a few more people who are going to do Divrei Torah sermons on Saturday morning. And then I'm sure we've got slots for Torah reading and other things. And so if you want to be a part of services, leading, teaching, chanting Torah, we have a spot for you. Come talk to Ronnie Pressman and she'll set you up and make sure that you've got what you need. So with that, we are going to conclude Olam Chesed Yibaneh, the world is built through love. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Shabbat Shalom. Thank
Shabbat
you, Ed.
Shalom. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Ed.